Welcome to day 26 of Shadowhunters month, getting quite close to the end now, and this time it's another top 10, the final top 10 of Shadowhunters month, although it's not the final countdown video, and this was one that took me ages to kind of put together, and obviously it's my top 10 favourite episodes of Shadowhunters. I found this so difficult. It was so close between so many. I was going back, rewatching the episodes, rewatching some of my reactions to them to see how I responded. And sometimes it was like maybe a storyline that I didn't particularly like in an episode that was the difference between it making it on the list or not. And there were so many different factors going into it. I found it really, really difficult to make a top 10. It's a very changeable thing. I feel like I could swap it around all the time. But I've got one that I'm going to stick to for now, at least. But yeah, I found this really, really difficult. I thought it'd be quite easy, but because the show has gotten so consistently good, it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint a top 10, and it's also very hard to kind of discard an episode from the top 10, because it's still a really great episode. So it was difficult. I found it really, really challenging. But I do have a list, so we're going to go through those. There were a few episodes that I really wanted to make it in the top 10 that I just decided against because there were just some I enjoyed a bit more, etc, etc. So I did want to shout out a few. This World Inverted, Season 1, Episode 10, was kind of a shout out, just because I loved the What If episodes and the Parallel World kind of episodes that some shows do. I just found that really, really interesting. Maybe not the greatest episode of all time, but I just wanted to throw that out there as, you know, maybe just missing out, I'm not sure. And also What Lies Beneath, which is Season 3, Episode 3. That was another great episode that just missed out in the top 10. I love all the stuff with Malik and Maris, or Maris, however you want to say her name. That whole, like, thank you for loving my boy scene was just so good, so emotional. We got some really great scenes in that episode. So I was sad that just missed out, but I wanted to shout out that one. And also Salt in the Wound, Season 3, Episode 7. Just missed out, even though I loved all the Maya and Jordan flashbacks and the Maya and Jordan kind of reunion in the present day as well. There's a lot of really cool stuff in that episode. Again, just missed out. Be it for personal reasons, or like actual quality of the episodes may have been better in some other points. That's just, you know, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. There were so many good episodes that just couldn't get into the list, which makes me sad, but it is a top 10. And I've tried my best to kind of be objective in episode quality, etc. But I did let a few personal favourites that most people may not have liked through the cracks. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into my top 10 favourite episodes. So at number 10, it's Hale and Farewell, which is Season 2, Episode 19. This is very much a kind of setup for the finale episode, obviously. So I feel like it raised the stakes quite a bit, which made it really, really exciting. I'm going to keep looking down because I made notes from the individual episodes I'm talking about. But we had some nice stuff with Simon and Maya, their connection, they explored a bit more, was really nice. And we kind of had Simon and Clary properly talking for the first time since their kind of pretty messy breakup after the whole Sealy Court thing. Actually, that's another episode I want to shout out. The, what was it called? The Fair Folk, Season 2, Episode 14. Just because that's an iconic scene from the book we finally got in the show. So that was another one that kind of missed out in the top 10, but I would have liked to have included it. But anyway, going back to this, yeah, we had kind of Simon and Chloe coming back together properly for the first time since their breakup, because Simon had asked for a bit of space. They hadn't seen each other for a few episodes at this point, and it was nice just seeing them interact and be friends again. And of course, we had angst with Malik because they broke up in the previous episode, and well, I hated that they were apart. I'm glad it was only for like that one episode, really. The angst was real, and the feels were real. You really felt the emotional torment they were both going through, really. But I love that kind of angst. You know, Fitzsimmons, my favourite couple of all time in TV, for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They are the definition of angst. So, getting that in this episode as well was kind of really bittersweet, and I really liked seeing that, because it helps you get emotionally invested in characters when there's a bit of angst. Then what else? Katarina appeared. I think this was her first appearance, and as a big book fan and a big fan of her, Katarina, it was great seeing her, so that got me hyped as a fan. I feel like a lot of rankings of these episodes is coming from me being a book nerd. There's some really cool action sequences, particularly the fight between Sebastian or Jonathan, whatever you prefer, with Jace and Izzy, which ended in Jonathan's death, which was awesome. Such a kind of punch to the air moment. It was really badass. Love that whole sequence so much. And who doesn't love a bit of Clay's sexual tension, you know? We did have that kind of awkward scene, well, awkward to me, where they're kind of standing really close to each other and it's all like glowy and shiny and was like, what the fuck's going on? But I do think Clay's have some really nice chemistry, and this episode displayed that really well. So I really liked seeing that. And yeah, we had like this awesome setup for the finale with Jonathan's death and Maya being taken and all that kind of thing. So it was just a really exciting kind of build-up episode, with a lot of punch to the air moments and a lot of... My phone just vibrated, sorry. I completely forgot it was there. But we also had like emotional angst to get invested in. So I really felt part of the episode, and that's why it made it onto the top 10. At number 9 on the list, it's You Are Not Your Own, which is Season 2, Episode 12. I was so sad I didn't react to this episode. At this time I just had an operation on my jaw. And of course, the first time since I started doing Shadowhunters reactions that I couldn't react to an episode was the fucking Sizzy episode that I've been dying to see. So that pissed me off. But yeah, this is kind of where I let bias slip through the cracks when I had a top 10 episodes. Sizzy is my life, my favourite couple in the show, and they're not even canon yet. But just seeing some proper interaction with Simon and Isabel, seeing their chemistry, which I thought was really good, having them interact and have that as really light-hearted friendship. I think it, you know, when you talk about Sizzy, you do kind of talk about their relationship a lot, but for me, you know, I feel like the friendship side of things was also really underrated, because they were really good friends before they kind of became more. And I always love a good relationship that starts with friendship first. So I really loved all the Sizzy interactions. It gave me life. I fanboyed so hard watching this episode, and honestly that is the main reason it made the list. But aside from that, I'm just looking at my notes. You know, we got to see a bit more of Will Tudor as Sebastian, and I thought Will Tudor is one of the best actors the show's had in its run. So I love seeing more of him. And that scene where he was kind of talking to Clary about her pain and everything was really interesting. Some amazing stuff between Jace and Imogen. They were exploring Jace's heritage and stuff. Imogen found out Jace was her grandson and vice versa. And they had this really nice scene near the end. You know, when they were going to be like, keep you in touch and stuff. And I loved the way the show explored Jace's family connections and stuff. So I was eating those scenes up as well. So, loved that. And then alongside this, we kind of had the whole body swap storyline. Because at this point, I think it was Azazel, I think that was the demon, swapped Valentine and Magnus's, you know, they switched bodies. So we had some amazing acting from Harry Shum Jr. and, I was about to say Harry Van Sprang, Alan Van Sprang. Incredible acting from both of them. Alan Van Sprang was fucking incredible in this episode. So again, more manic angst, I suppose, and there was so much drama in, you know, it was kind of clearly like a filler plot line, I suppose, but we did get some like exploration of Magnus's past and character through scenes where he was like tortured as well. So I really liked all the storylines that are running through this episode, and obviously all the Sizzy stuff. So that's why this episode stuck so deeply in my mind, and why it made number 9. So at number 8, it's A Window into an Empty Room, which is season 3, episode 6. This is another one that kind of slipped through the cracks and made it onto the list because of my book nerdiness. But I'll get onto that a bit later on. We've got some really nice scenes with Malik in this episode as always, and Maris, however you want to say it. She showed up again. We caught up with her, after having had her runes kind of taken away and all that. And we were seeing how she was coping and stuff like that. Some awesome scenes where, Magnus and Alec were kind of standing up for her when she was trying to get into the Institute. They wouldn't let it happen. And Alec was like, bitch please, you're letting her in. Really emotional scenes with Maris and Isabel. She was wondering, like, who is she now and what's she going to do with herself. Really great kind of exploration of the mother-child relationships with the Lightwood in this episode that I really, really loved. Then we also had the ending where, Clary and Magnus finally found out that Jace was the owl. We got a nice reveal scene with that at the end of the episode, so it was great that we had some real plot advancement. The main thing for me, aside from some little Sizzy stuff, as a book nerd, not only did Magnus mention Brother Zachariah by name, which was enough to completely floor me, as you may have seen in the reaction to that episode, we had the deliciousness of actually seeing Brother Zachariah, or Jem, in the flesh. We actually saw him. He had a scene with Magnus and Clary. I got really, really emotional, because I'm very attached to Brother Zachariah, or Jem, as a character. It was just amazing seeing him in live action, after loving that character so, so dearly. And yeah, it just made me so emotional, and another kind of punch the air moment for me personally. And just seeing these moments in the books and these characters in the books be brought to life is just always so satisfying. It never gets old, and this is one of the best examples of that happening. And I got really, really emotional seeing this kind of play out on screen. So yeah, that was why, for me, this episode was so, so good. At number 7 on the list, this is probably much, much higher for a lot of people, but I also kind of wanted to get a season 1 episode in here. But it is Malik, season 1, episode 12. Obviously the main reason I feel a connection to this episode is because it's iconic in the whole kind of world and fandom of Shadowhunters. Because obviously we got the huge wedding with Alec and Lydia. But oh, bitch no, Magnus shows up, kind of wants to declare his feelings for Alec. Alec's like, okay bitches, I'm out, I'm gonna snog this guy. The ultimate way of coming out to his family. So extra. Just a really iconic moment for everyone. I loved everyone's reactions to it, particularly Simon's afterwards when he was talking about how they were like the people at the end of The Graduate, and it was all like freaking out, stuff like that. It had been built up to all season, and it was such an amazing payoff to see these two kind of finally get together, and in such dramatic fashion. So I loved that, and that aside with the whole Malik stuff, which is kind of the main reason everyone loves it, we saw Ragnar in this episode, like an old friend of Magnus's, another warlock, who I loved in the books, so seeing him brought to life, even though he died, was awesome. Getting a brief exploration of that relationship between Magnus and Ragnar, because they're very, very old friends. I thought Havisham Jr. gave a great performance in this episode, especially in the scenes where Ragnar died. And yeah, exploring Magnus's past again. I always love that kind of stuff, and this is something that this episode did so well. And yeah, seeing Ragnar was great, but obviously I think the iconic wedding kiss is why this episode is in the top 10. At number 6 on the list, it's season 2, episode 18, Awake, Arise, or Be Forever Fallen. I think this is another one that would be a lot higher up on some people's lists, But yeah, for me, I just prefer some others a bit more. But I did mention earlier that I really connected with like angst with couples. Like I was saying about Hale and Farewell, the manic angst in that. I mean, that was nothing compared to the manic angst in this episode. We got some incredible manic flashbacks for their first time, which was awesome. And then we also had that really tragic ending with Magnus breaking up with Alec. Really sad, really emotional. They both gave incredible performances. Matthew Daddario in that scene where Magnus breaks up with Alec is just so heartbreaking, so good. And even though it didn't last very long, that breakup, literally like an episode and a half, it still has that impact, and it's still a really emotional scene. Getting those manic flashbacks and in proper insight into their relationship, and then having it ripped away from us so cruelly. It was very well done, very well performed, and I really got emotionally invested in that, so it was awesome. And then aside from that, we had the whole kind of deal with Max and Sebastian, or Jonathan, nearly killing him. The whole drama of that going on, taken from the books in a way, but the books, killed off Max, whereas he lived in the show. So seeing that kind of story play out was really interesting as well. I liked seeing that. And also another book character we met was Bat. He was introduced in this episode. And I didn't really connect with Bat much in the books, but I actually quite like him in the show. I think he's a lot of fun. He's quite funny at sometimes. So seeing him brought into the show was really cool. And then seeing Simon and Maya kind of help him as he's becoming a werewolf and allowing him to integrate into the pack was really, really interesting. And I loved seeing the connection between Simon and Maya, and also Maya and Bat. It was all really, really cool, and I really loved seeing that whole story play out. So basically, all the stories in this episode were top notch, and I got really emotionally invested in this episode. And again, manic flashbacks, iconic manic moments, and of course this episode's going to be in most people's top 10s. So into the top half of the list now, and at number 5, it's Parabatai Lost, which is Season 2, Episode 3. For the longest time, this was my favourite episode ever. But re-examining some episodes, I kind of swapped it around a bit. But I feel like this was one of the first amazing episodes of Shadowhunters. And I for that aside, because it blew me away so much, I'm always going to have a deep connection to it. And of course I really love the plot of it, and basically I seem to just have a thing for flashback episodes. Episodes with flashbacks in them I seem to really love, because we got flashbacks of young Jace, young Alec, young Izzy, Alec and Jace's Parabatai ceremony. I loved seeing those moments play out. It was really, really cool. The emotion behind what was going on with Alec and Jace coming back and kind of bringing him back from the brink of death, I suppose, at the end, in a really emotional and very well acted sequence, which I loved. Still one of my favourite moments of the show. Then we also had a really interesting storyline with Simon and Raphael and Simon's mother. I really liked seeing that whole interaction. Simon's my favourite anyway, so I loved seeing how he dealt with the situation in the episode. And the show has changed Raphael quite a lot from the books. In the books, he's very antagonistic. He's not a very nice person at all. He doesn't really have many redeeming qualities. And I feel like the show uses him a lot more than the books do. But in this episode, Raphael felt like book Raphael, which I really liked, because he was more of an antagonist, and he was a bit nasty at times. So I really liked seeing that whole story. And another thing of note is obviously this is the first appearance of Maya in the show, and I loved Maya in the books. She's one of my favourite characters. I didn't really connect with her at first actually, but kind of by the end of book 2 and book 3 I was really starting to like her a lot. But yeah, seeing her show up in the show was just such a huge deal for me, and I really loved having that moment of seeing one of my favourite characters in the books be brought to life. And Alicia Wainwright started off brilliantly and has continued to just be, better and better in the role. So seeing Maya show up and having scenes with her and Jason the Jade Wolf was... not Jade Wolf, Hunter's Moon, was really, really cool. So yeah, some really amazing moments in this episode, a lot of emotion behind it, and that's why it's at number 5. Number 4 on the list is How Art Thou Fallen, Season 2, Episode 7. Another fantastic episode. Don't know how high this would rank on other people's lists, if at all. But for me personally, I love this because it felt like, almost for the first time, the books on screen. I feel like they captured the feel of the books really, really well in this episode. And I loved that so much. We had some kind of interactions with Jace and Simon and Maya. And I loved the interactions with Jace and Simon in this episode. Their relationship being highlighted was great. Jace was sassy and had some really funny one-liners in this episode, so he felt really like book Jace. Simon was awkward and hilarious. I loved Simon's kind of connection with Maya, and them trying to, see if there was a romantic spark. And yeah, the interactions with Jace and Simon were just top-notch, so I loved that. We had, of course, some Malik adorableness, which is always a positive in any episode. We had a Sizzy scene, which got me really excited because I didn't know it was coming, so when that showed up and they had that brief interaction at Hunter's Moon, I was like, yeah! And it drove me nuts, and I could not stop watching that scene for weeks. So I love that so much. Then we had a bit more exploration of Sister Cleophas, Luke's sister, which I found a really interesting kind of storyline, so I love that they included her a bit more. We saw the Angel Ithuriel, which was awesome, seeing him come out and get his wings and give Jason Chloe that vision before he left. Really, really cool moment. It really felt like Shadowhunters was really coming to its own by this point. That's kind of why I have a fondness for this episode. And yeah, just before Ithuriel kind of gives them that image and flies away, we have a really, really cool fight scene with Clace. I thought that was a really badass sequence and I really loved it. And that was such a badass way of ending the episode. So yeah, overall I just really loved all the character interactions in that episode. It felt like the books. There were some really awesome moments, and that's why I love this episode so much. Basically, give me Sizzy. Simple. At number 3, it's The Powers That Be, which is Season 3, Episode 2. This one surprised me at how far up I actually ranked this. I remember really enjoying the episode, but examining it and kind of ordering this list, maybe it should be a bit lower down, but what I love about this episode is that it's fucking hysterical, and sometimes Shadowhunters has these really bleak moments and a lot of angst. So to have a genuinely funny episode and an overall pretty light-hearted episode was kind of a breath of fresh air, and so much fun. You could just sit back and enjoy the ride and laugh along. It's definitely, I think, the funniest episode of the show, and the comedy is just top-notch in it. So I really loved this episode for that, really. It kind of broke away from the norm that we came to expect with the show. And you can just have a laugh with it, and I really love that aspect of it. So what should I talk about first? Again, mainly the comedy I really liked with Malik sneaking around. What's his face's? The guy who's High Warlock now. What was his name? I can't remember. You know who I'm talking about, that absolute dick. And they're sneaking around his house and stuff. Trying to solve this mystery of the ley lines and stuff. And their interactions with each other when they're sneaking around. So funny. I love seeing them together. And again at the end when they kind of solved the problem and Nyak was like, I did it. And Magnus was there drained of lots of his magic and he was like, you did it. It was just really funny seeing those two get some light-hearted moments and allowing them to, act together in a comical way, which was really, really fun. Just seeing most of the cast be able to let out their comedic chops was such a joy. And that was a prime example of that, along with the whole double date thing with Clace and Sire. Oh my god, so brilliantly awkward, that scene. I love the interaction earlier in the episode where Jace called Simon asking about, you know, restaurants and stuff. And Simon's like, how'd you get this number and stuff like that? And Jace just completely hangs up on him at the end. And then they turn out to be both going to the same restaurant, and they just end up sitting together at the table. And it gets really awkward because obviously they're kind of all each other's exes in a weird way. And Simon and Clary find out that Jace and Maya used to hook up. Really awkward, but so beautiful. And they're just like, oh, let's just get cocktails and get drunk. Yes, a mood. So funny. I love seeing all four of them kind of interact with each other and bounce off each other. I feel like those four characters really worked well together and bounced off each other brilliantly. There was a great chemistry between the four of them. And then after that whole kind of fiasco with that really funny date, they showcase some real maturity in the relationships. They could have taken this proper dramatic route and had them all fall out over the revelations about like Jace and Maya, etc. But they don't. They show some maturity in these relationships. Maya's like, you know, don't need to apologise for it. We weren't together then. And Simon jokes like, you know, I'm pretty sure even I'll sleep with Jace at some point, which is really funny. And, you know, Clary was fine with it as well. And Jace gives this really nice speech to her about how he doesn't want to mess things up with their relationship. And there was such a display of maturity with both of those couples. I just really, really loved it. And then we also had a really nice scene between Luke and Isabel that I've always really liked, when he was talking about, you know, time with Jocelyn he wished he had. And Isabel's like, you know, I don't have a Jocelyn. And Luke's just like, you know, start looking for one, go out and find one. And she will, and I can't wait! I just thought it was a beautiful scene with those two. I just wanted to shout that out, because it's one of my, low-key one of my favourite scenes. And I'd love to see more of like the Luke and Isabel relationship, which we did kind of get in the 3A finale, so hopefully we'll see more of it in 3B. So I loved that, and also I loved the ending of the episode, where we properly saw the Mark of Cain in its full effect for the first time, where someone attacks Simon and they go flying. Such a cool punch to the air badass moment. Great way of ending the episode, with a bit of mystery and a bit of excitement. So yeah, I basically loved everything about this episode, how it changed up the norm. All the character interactions, the comedy, it just worked so well, and I had an absolute blast watching that episode, which is why I treat it so fondly and why it's at number 3. So at number 2 on the list, it is Beside Still Water, which is season 2, episode 20, the season 2 finale. One of, well, probably the best season finale we've had so far, maybe the best, almost the best finale in general. It was just so amazing. The stakes were so high, so much needed to happen, and I feel like this episode really delivered on the emotional punches, and again the punch of the air moments. It kind of brought an end to the main Valentine storyline, which I feel like it needed to do. We still had one of my absolute favourite moments in the show's history, where the angel Raziel is summoned and comes from the lake, and it's like exceeding my expectations of what that scene could be. It was so good. So yeah, seeing Raziel was great. As a book fan, I kind of fanboyed over that. It looked amazing. That whole sequence was just beyond anything I could have dreamed, and I loved it. The angst that was kind of running throughout the whole thing as well was brilliant. Malik reunited in a really cool scene. We had some amazing setup for season 3 with like Lilith showing up and Jace having those kind of visions and stuff. Yeah, Valentine was defeated, which was really cool, seeing him die, yes. Really badass moment for Clary. Jace's death, really emotional sequence that got me, you know, very teary. So well done, really well acted kind of finale. And even though Jace came back not long after he was killed, it was a very emotional scene, especially when we cut to like Alec going through all that pain of losing his Parabatai rune. Just a brilliant sequence in a brilliant episode and a fantastic finale. Also, probably the number one reason this ranks so highly on this list, Drunk Luke. Drunk Luke is hilarious. I hope we have a whole episode of Drunk Luke in the future. honestly, he could be the best character in Shadowhunters. Just drunk Luke. Just let him be drunk all the time. Hilarious. I love that so much. So yeah, we had like this real moment of celebration at the end of season 3, end of season 2 even, before the setup for season 3 started. Some amazing character interactions. The scale of everything was brilliant. And again, the whole Rachel thing just made me so happy. Really, really satisfying finale. Utterly fantastic episode. Emotion, action. It kind of delivered on all the fronts to me. That's why it's at number 2. And then number 1, and my favourite episode of Shadowhunters so far, is season 3, episode 10, the 3A finale. Urkomai, or Urchomai, however you pronounce it, I still don't know. Again, maybe it's my Sizzy bias, because we got some incredible Sizzy content in this episode. We did in the previous one as well, that whole, you're a good man, Simon Lewis scene. Love that! But we got some amazing content in this episode as well. I was well fed, basically. One of the most powerful and emotional scenes in the whole show, Simon kind of encantoing his mother, or whatever the term is, into accepting that he died in an accident to kind of cover up the whole vampire thing. Heartbreaking. The performances in that scene were just incredible. I got really emotional, and then we had that Sizzy hug, and I died inside, and it was amazing, and yeah, just like the best thing that's ever happened to me. So yeah, we had that whole scene going on, but then we had loads of other kind of action sequences going on. That amazing battle sequence in that building. The display of powers with like Isabel being able to like look in the building and stuff when her eyes glowed. That was so cool. Jace coming back. All the cliffhangers for 3B and beyond that we still didn't really know what's going to happen to, because Magnus lost his powers. Alec kind of had an arrow impaled through him or something, so he's not in the best of ways. Clary's dead, apparently. Jonathan's back. So yeah, that whole kind of final sequence of the episode, so good, got me so hyped. Felt ripped from the books at some points that I really enjoyed. Badass fighting sequences. I felt really invested in the action and what was going on. When Ruel's song kicked in near the end, amazing. The whole explosion with Lilith being defeated. I love that sequence so much. And yeah, overall it was just an amazing way to end the first half of the season. Lilith was amazing. The end sequence, the action, the emotional stakes. It was just something else for me. It did feel like the whole show had been building towards that episode at that point. And it kind of gave me everything I could have wanted and more in terms of characters and plot and everything. It was just kind of a perfect way to cap off season 3A. And it gets me so excited to see what on earth's going to happen next, but we don't know. Because I'm sure once we've seen 3B in the finale, this list will probably change quite drastically. But yeah, for now, that incredible finale to season 3A is my favourite episode of Shadowhunters. So those were my top 10 favourite episodes of Shadowhunters. Let me know what your favourite episodes are, or list your top 10 if you want to take the time and do that, because this took me ages to do, so I'd understand if you just want to name a few and not list your own top 10. I was thinking of doing like a least favourite episodes list, but I feel like that's a bit too negative. I don't need to go for that. And just because I feel like there's a lot more great episodes than there are like bad ones. And even then, I don't think any of them are necessarily bad for the most part. But yeah, I found this really challenging to do, but I'm kind of happy with how my list turned out. Obviously, everyone's going to have kind of different opinions depending on plots they liked or got invested in, characters that they like or dislike, relationships they like or dislike. I feel like that's really going to have an impact on whether or not you like an episode. So lots of people's lists will probably be radically different to mine. There might be some people who agree with a lot of my list, or just outright hate me for putting some of these episodes on this list. So yeah, let me know what your favourite episodes are, and until tomorrow's video, thanks for watching.